Kelly Orchard's podcast for successful badassery. You know what doesn't get old? Being called a badass. Turn up your energy with Fruitful Friday. Here's Kelly Orchard.
Well, thank you very much, Bobby Ocean. And no, you're right. It does not get old being called a badass. I know how it feels great, right?
Who wouldn't want to be a certified badass?
Well, yeah, we want everybody to be a certified badass. I mean, who wouldn't want to be? Yeah, thanks for that great introduction, Bobby. Okay, so here we are for Fruitful Friday. I'm Kelly Orchard, the Badass Certifier, and today on Fruitful Friday, we're still talking about the acronym of B.A.D.A.S.S, which is this month, the entire month of March, we're doing the D in B.A.D.A.S.S, which is for decide and determine. You know, people often ask, what's the hardest part about becoming licensed to be badass? It's to decide that you're going to make a shift. So this is a Badass Leadership Summit all throughout the month of March. It's the beginning of spring, and we're going to be covering the letter D in Badass, which stands for Decide to Grow and Succeed. An important component to being licensed to be badass is to decide. And we're going to be talking all month about leadership and positive productivity. So this is the Badass Leadership Summit. For Fruitful Friday, I've got some apples of wisdom for you about leadership practices, tips for a productive team, and some weekend vibes for your first weekend of March. How does that feel?
I got a feeling inside my bones. Check your baggage at licensed-to-be-badass.com and hop on the bus to Badassville. Flipping the format on the fear of failure with Fruitful Friday. Here's Kelly Orchard.
Well, alrighty then. Thanks again, Bobby. Okay, segment one for Fruitful Friday. I can't even say that. Fruitful Friday. I mean, I guess I could go back and take that again, but this is just honest in me, and I'm not going to do a whole lot of editing just so I can sound normal. I want you to feel that I've recorded this live just for you, Badass, because that's what this is all about. I'm certifying badasses one podcast at a time. So we are having a little Badass Leadership Summit throughout the entire month of March, and leadership means a lot of things to a lot of different people. And so here what I've got for you, it's like, I've got some ideas on how to be a good leader and what leadership might mean. You know, I read a lot of articles and blogs on personal and professional development, and it keeps me focused. And as a professional, I often gain reinforcement when I read something that reminds me what I'm doing and what I'm going to do to move forward professionally is exactly what is being written as tips, hints, and how-tos. So leadership means continued learning. You know, I've been a leader and a coach my entire life myself, but I also believe that there is more to learn from others, which is why I continue to seek help from others like mentors. I set some new goals at the beginning of the year, and I reignite my broadcasting consulting business, and I sought out some people that I asked to help mentor me through the process. The advice and encouragement has been invaluable to me. So I want to encourage you. Leadership means to continue to learn. It's not always about what you give out. You're learning new things. So leadership also means to make new connections. You know, I like to say I specialize in media and mental health, and was encouraged not too long ago to be attending the National Association of Broadcasters annual convention in Las Vegas in order to kind of re-promote what I do. You know, in the course of years in business, I've attended this convention more times than I can remember and found myself setting up meetings, making contacts, registering for sessions, and gearing up for what would be a working vacation in Las Vegas. I've attended the sessions on leaderships and speakers and things like that. You can constantly be reinventing yourself. Whatever season you're in right now, and of course, we've all been hit by a pretty rough season. And I've been telling a lot of my clients, this is the best time ever for you to reinvent yourself because you can get out there and fail and, well, you can blame COVID. I say that facetiously, but it is true. If you're in a process of completely needing to reinvent your career, this is a great time to do it. Later on, you can ask friends and colleagues, to do other things for you. And then you can do things about them. Like one of the things that results in me asking questions was, creating this podcast. I said earlier, I reached out to my broadcasting friends and said, how can I help? What can I do? And so many have said, you need to write some articles for the trades. Well, I did that years ago. So I stirred up some of those articles and I put them back out there again. Some others said, you really need to have a podcast. So guess what? I developed a podcast. That's what it means by making connections and then taking that leadership, that advice that you get. Leadership also means diversity of skills. I've spent several years working in the mental health field, and I absolutely love it. Now that the dust is settled on this new career path, and I've embraced going back into broadcast media, which really is my wheelhouse, this podcast is available everywhere. It's amazing. I had my other one, Apple a Day, Kelly Orchard's Apple a Day, which, by the way, you can get on this same platform that you're listening to, probably just side by side. If you search Kelly Orchard, you will find both podcasts. I did that deliberately. This is the podcast for successful badassery. But the thing is that before I made the decision to become educated in the mental health field, I had participated in the NAB's broadcast leadership training program, which was an MBA style program that was just like an accelerated college program. In my early years in Victorville, I was a member of the very first Leadership Victor Valley program developed by the Victorville Chamber of Commerce. I was a young 20-something and found the program to be extremely beneficial to my professional development, and I made some excellent contacts through the program as well. So it may have been only Victorville, like I shared on Wednesday about my It's Only Victorville stories. I've learned over the course of the years that it doesn't matter where you start, as long as you continue to develop and grow. And that's what leadership means. Leadership also means to continue learning. I've recently had lunch with people, executive major radio companies, and that brings me full circle with combining my experience in my broadcasting and my education and practice in mental health. My consulting business has worked with this company for years, but also in a different aspect of business. Regulatory compliance. Yeah, not very sexy, but definitely important. Now, we've discussed the mental health issues and the state of the industry, especially what's going on right now, which led us to collaborate on the idea of putting together a well-being program for their staff. And I'm thrilled to develop programs like that on mental health in an industry that I know and love. What a perfect blend of my passions and skills. I can only share with you mine here. Of course, on Mustang Mondays, I talk to other people. But the idea here is for you to think about, okay, see how I'm implementing my different passions and my different abilities. Well, when you get to a certain point, there's a common denominator of all the things that you have done in your life. And if you're in a position right now where you are a leader or you need to reinvent how you're leading, this is just a good way for you to kind of focus on different stuff. Like leadership means reinvention, and that takes effort and time, but it can be done. You just got to make the simple commitment to take the first step, like listening to this podcast. The D in B.A.D.A.S.S is to decide. Well, you're here, so yay, good for you. I'm so excited. Now I can read a book, find a mentor, ask questions. There are some excellent resources readily available and plenty of leaders eager to share their wisdom, including me. I fill my email and my social networks with positive messages to teach and encourage and inspire me. So don't ignore the obvious. If you're dissatisfied with any area or in your life right now, and I know a lot of people they're looking at rebuilding, the personal or professional, it's never too late to just follow your heart. You got to start with the journey by examining who and what let you invade your interpersonal space. You got to shake things up a little bit and make a decision to allow positive, affirming messages to infiltrate your mind, body, and spirit. Give it a month or so and see how differently you feel. Because leadership means leading others in development. Now, also on this, I wanted to share a little bit about how stress affects the body. I am a heart math method practitioner, and I shared this information with some people recently, and it went over so well that I wanted to share it right here, and I just want to make it really briefly. Stress is incredibly high right now in so many people, and 60 to 80% of primary care doctors talk about that their patients' visits are related to stress. 3% of the patients receive stress management help. That's all. Why? And some of the physical symptoms are this: headaches, dizziness, like ADHD, ADD, anxiety, irritability, and anger, panic disorders. Then you move down to your mouth. You can be grinding your teeth or having tension in your jaw. Stress could also affect you with increased heart rate, strokes, heart disease, hypertension, diabetes, and arrhythmias. How about digestive disorders, upset stomach, abdominal pain, irritable bowel syndrome? What about weight gain, obesity, decreased sex drive, muscle tension, fibromyalgia, complex regional pain syndrome? Stress affects the entire body and can cause many other problems. 42% of Americans report lying awake at night due to stress. Stress facts. You got to understand the mechanics of stress and how it gives you the advantage to being more aware and sensitive to your own level of stress and knowing when and how to take proactive steps. The increased awareness also helps you better care for your family and friends. So I've got a few tips for you. Your body doesn't care if it's a big stress or a little one. The human body doesn't discriminate between big stress or little one. So regardless of the significance, stress affects the body in predictable ways. A typical stress reaction, which most of us experience dozens of times a day, begins with a cascade of 1,400 biochemical events in your body. It's the reaction. If the reactions are left unchecked, we age prematurely, our cognitive function is impaired, our energy is drained, and we are robbed of the effectiveness and clarity. Stress can make smart people do stupid things. Stress causes what brain researchers call cortical inhibition. The phenomenon of cortical inhibition helps to explain why smart people do dumb things. Simply said, stress inhibits a small part of your brain and you can function at your best. When we are in coherence, a state where we are cognitively sharp, emotionally calm, and we feel and think with enhanced clarity, the brain, heart, and nervous system are working in harmony. This state of coherence facilitates our cognitive functioning. We are actually operating at peak performance, mentally, emotionally, and physically. People can become numb to their stress. This is fact 3. We can become physiologically experiencing stress, yet mentally numb to it because we've become so accustomed to it. Some have become so adapted to the daily pressures, irritations, and annoyances of life that it starts to seem normal. Yet the small stresses accumulate quickly, and we may not realize how much they're impairing our mental and emotional clarity and overall health until it shows up as a bad decision, an overreaction, or an unwanted diagnosis at the doctor's office. We can control how we respond to stress, and I've got ways to teach you the best way to handle your stress in the moment. Now, I've taken a lot of this from Heart Math, which is a scientifically proven technique. They use it in school districts and government agencies and everything to calm and reduce stress. But I've just implemented how we can use music. All right, now that's going to end this for segment 1 as we certify badasses one podcast at a time. Come back in just a few seconds. Bobby just has some stuff to say, don't you, Bobby?
That's right, Kelly. Fear is the number one obstacle to success. Let's flip the format on your fear. Hey, badass, you're one of my kind.
Yeah, I know. You're one of my kind too, badass. That's why I asked you to work with me on this. So thank you for being such an awesome sidekick. If only you people knew. All right, so this is our little badass leadership summit. And so right now I'm going to give you some tips for a more productive team. Now I know a lot of you might be working in different environments and this and that, but some of the same tips still matter. You got to find the good in people. Make a habit to look for the good in people. Lift them up. Raise them to a higher standard. That's what it'll take to make you a leader in anything that you do. Another tip, number 2, listen to your conscience. Your conscience is your heart, your soul, your inner world. When you're out today, listen to what your inner voice is telling you. Listen to your gut check. Tip number 3, keep your promises. Keeping promises isn't always easy. In fact, I recently read that as soon as somebody says, I promise, that's the beginning of a lie. When you make a promise, keep it. Tip number 4, pay good deeds forward. If someone does something nice for you, do something nice for somebody else, especially if it's a stranger. Paying good deeds will have multiple benefits for your professional life. Tip number 5, find balance. Stop. Close your eyes and just listen to your breath. Fill up your lungs and then exhale. When you do this for 30 seconds, it provides for an emotionally calming reaction in your body. It helps to reduce stress. Number 6, be a good role model. It is our human nature to seek and look up to heroes. So when you are a positive role model, you become a hero to many. But make it a habit without seeking accolades. All right, tip number 7, learn from your mistakes. I mean, haven't we all made mistakes? I know that I make them daily, and I'm sure that you do too. I don't beat myself up over them, though. I look at my mistakes as an opportunity to grow. Here's another tip for a more productive team. Number 8, break out of the comfort zone. Make a habit of breaking out of your comfort zone every day. Small steps are key. Sure, you can take the big leap too. Those are really scary. Just keep all your efforts in perspective. Tip number 9, worry gets you nowhere fast, and you'll have nothing to show for it. Take a break from whatever you're doing and think about all the things that can go right. Period. Now, number 10, value people over things. We all know we can't take our stuff with us when we go, and what we will leave behind will probably be fought over anyway. I've seen that happen countless times. So that's one of your tips for a more productive team, is value people more than you value things. All right, so here we are. And the next thing I want to do right now is I want to share with you a little bit about ethics and lessons in learning. All right, so, I started doing leadership very young in Victorville. I told you earlier I did the leadership program with the Chamber of Commerce. But even before that, when we first arrived in Victorville to build the radio station, I was a junior in high school. I managed to get myself on the newspaper staff because I'd had so much journalism and English courses and creative writing in my previous high school. So when the next year came around and I was a senior, I was the editor of my school paper. The radio station had gone on the air that summer prior, so when I registered for classes, I learned that I only had 7 classes that I needed to take in order to graduate. I could take 6 classes for the semester, but there was no opportunity for me to get another unit so I could graduate an entire semester early. So I thought the option of work experience, might be a good way to go. So I went to the work experience teacher and I asked him to apply for work experience, but he denied my application. Because over the years, students had claimed that they worked for their parents' business and took advantage of the program because they weren't actually working for their parents. The parents would sign the document claiming that they were. So this instructor had made a policy that you couldn't get work experience if you claimed you worked for your parents. No, of course, I had legitimately done work for my parents and I was actually working as evidence, but the teacher wouldn't change his policy. Of course, I was angry, of course. And that would have made me have to go back for 1 semester just to take 1 class. And truthfully, as the new kid in town, I was pretty anxious to just get out of that school. I didn't even know anybody. I was uncomfortable. I was on the radio. It was weird. Seriously. I had a hard time making friends. So I just wanted to get out of school early so I could just start working full time and just be there. So I decided that because I was the editor of this school paper, I'd write a story about it, report about it. Report my experience in applying for work experience, about being denied. Now, I don't remember if I talked to my dad about it, or maybe it was my journalism instructor, or, maybe it was my own ethical boundaries that caused me to write an article that was not disparaging about the policy, but just explaining it as what I learned in journalism, the facts, the who, the what, the where, and the why. So I submitted the article, and of course, as the paper, I was the editor. I didn't have to ask permission or anything. When the paper came out, the principal called me into his office. He told me that he had read my article and he spoke with the instructor about the policy. And since he heard me on the radio doing the news at 4, 5, and 6 o'clock, and he'd actually seen me out at functions with my dad, he, as the principal, knew that I actually was working. So he offered me this. Write two 10-page reports on the topics of how to get a radio station and put it on the air, and then why someone should advertise on your radio station. Write me those 2 reports, and I will give you the 5 units you need to graduate. Now, this is an ethical thing here. This was a win for me. I could have written an article that was disparaging against the policy, that slammed it and was backlashed. I could have made that instructor angry with me and had a long history of nastiness with this gentleman. Maybe I would have been a hero with some of my classmates and some of my peers that would have thought that that was a good way to fight the good fight. I mean, they do that on social media now. But I really did love the opportunity that I had. So I just stuck with the facts, with my ethics, and that taught by my dad. At the time, I was learning about broadcasting and about being out in your community and how serving the community was beneficial. And I really loved the work. I loved the opportunity of what I was learning. So when my principal gave me this opportunity, I looked at that as a win. It could have gone the other way. Your ethics are going to be what gets you successful and noticed and achieve your dreams and goals. So watch what you put out there. Even on social media, be careful what you say in a text or in an email. Your ethics are always going to be something that is personal to you and how you respond to the world. And I'm very glad that I was able to learn those ethics at a very early age, because even today, I still practice the same philosophies about being involved in my community and giving back, because you get more benefits out of that when you give. It really is true, because you're putting this positive energy out there. It makes you feel good. It also helps relieve stress. I mean, we talked about stress release, and it's just good leadership skills. You have nothing to lose and everything to gain. So on this Fruitful Friday, as we're considering vibes, I'm not talking about going out and working harder. You see, I wasn't working harder. I wasn't out doing other stuff. I'm not telling you to go out and dig somebody's fence posts. That's not what I want you to do for weekend vibes. But I do want you to think about your personal ethics and look at the positive stuff that you have already done. That's what I want you to do, and then document it, and then turn on some music and have some fun with it. We're going to come back with some Apple-A-Days and some weekend vibes and fruitfulness.
Fruitful Fridays with Kelly Orchard's Apple a Day and Weekend Vibes. Let's take a bite of some Apple a Day topics.
All right, so let's take a bite of some apples. That's right. This is all about leadership this whole entire month. And so a couple of these apples are really important to me. Now is the time to define your life roles. You may have leadership roles in relation to your profession, your family, your community, or other areas in your life. Are you people born or destined to become leaders? Or is a leader developed over a lifetime of experiences? When you motivate your team, whether it's at work or your sport or your family or your community, you exhibit great leadership ability. So what makes a great leader? When I was 13 years old, I joined a cheerleading squad, and I remember feeling like the odd man out. The coach for the team had her favorites and paid little attention to those of us she didn't consider worthy of her attention. It caused me to feel unimportant and insignificant. The following season, I signed up to be a coach because I didn't want anyone to be on a cheer squad to feel unmotivated or insignificant. So at age 14, I began developing leadership skills to motivate, encourage, and inspire my team. Was I born to lead, or did I develop leadership abilities? In my case, I believe it was both. I was determined to lead a team of cheerleaders to be the best squad they could be. I have continued to lead by coaching in business, in relationships, in consulting, and in my community. What does being a great leader look like? Well, they have the ability to inspire. They also know how to lead with focus by being completely authentic in all their interactions. You can use these skills and also include integrity. According to Webster, the simple definition of integrity is the quality of being honest and fair, complete, or whole. Remember the story I told you about the high school newspaper about, writing a story about not being able to get work experience. It can also mean that one has a firm adherence to a moral code. And I believe that's something that happens with me. I also follow that. I love to follow leaders that seem real and approachable to me. Someone who becomes a mentor to me because of their moral code and fairness. I strive to be that kind of leader with my family, my clients, my business partners. I believe that they all know me to have integrity. How do you maintain integrity in how you lead? Abraham Lincoln said, "Nearly all men can stand adversity, but if you want to test a man's character, give him power." It'll never matter how much power you think you have in business, relationships, or in your career. Without integrity, you'll have nothing. So practice honesty, fairness, and authenticity, and you will lead with integrity.
How do you like them apples? Kelly Orchard's Apple a Day. Good medicine for a badass.
Yeah, that's right. And you know what else? You can find Kelly Orchard's Apple a Day on the same podcast platform that you're listening to, the Successful Badassery podcast as well. I have it listed as Kelly Orchard on both of my podcasts, so that way it's easy to find me. You can just search Kelly Orchard and you'll find the Apple a Day, and that's every single day you'll get 60 seconds of wisdom, success, and personal growth. Plus you'll get a little bit of a touch of bite-sized apples on Fridays for Fruitful Friday as well. So now we're heading on into some weekend vibes, and just kind of wrapping things up. This is kind of like a little mini, I call it a Badass Leadership Summit. And we're just having some fun with some really great leadership tips. And I'm so really thankful and grateful, to have Bobby Ocean along for the ride. So, Bobby, on Wednesday, just this past Wednesday for Wednesday Wisdom, I did a little bit of my, clip from my Badass certification class. And you learned a little bit about what that was. And I shared a very special song to me. And so, next week, next Wednesday we'll do it again. So what are you thinking? What do you think that I should do? What kind of music might I want to introduce to our friends out here, our badasses, that I have attached to a warm, happy memory? What do you think?
It's still rock and roll to me.
Well, already then. Okay, so come back Monday. We've got another Mustang Monday coming up, and it's all leadership topics. People that I've had hop in the seat of my 2006 Mustang with me, and we just have a nice badass chat in a badass car. So if you like fast cars, fun chats, and badass tips from the streets, please, continue to come back for our little mini Badass Leadership Summit all throughout the month of March. You can grab your badass a badass ebook for Badass Habits, absolutely free, just by going to my website. Links are actually in the podcast notes, and I'm going to send you a sticker. That's right, I'm going to send you a License to Be Badass sticker. So how can you deny that? All right, so thank you so much. Today we had some apples of wisdom on leadership practices, tips for a productive team, and some weekend vibes for your first weekend in March. Happy fruitfulness. And, we did some Joy to the World on Wednesday. So if you want to know about that, go on back. And Bobby has kind of told me what we're going to do this coming Wednesday. So lots of fun things coming up for the entire month of March.
Snag your Badass Habits ebook. Get started on your badass journey. Go to licensedtobebadass.com. Then hop on the bus to Badassville.
Thanks for listening and getting one step closer to being licensed to be badass. Be sure to subscribe to continue on the bus to Badassville. Snag your Badass Habits ebook at licensedtobebadass.com. You can stay in the slow lane and get just enough tools for successful badassery, one podcast at a time. Or you can join the Badass Ambassador crew in the fast lane by checking your baggage with my Licensed to be Badass integrated program with videos, worksheets, and group coaching for motivation, mindset, and a fresh approach to living a fruitfully badass life.
Be bold, be brave, be confident, be badass.